Hello and welcome to the Flourishing Introvert Talks with me, Jo Rawbone. This is the podcast that celebrates the natural gifts of introverts so that we can flourish in all situations. Episode 300, Surviving Social Expectations. Let's start with the unpalatable but unavoidable truth. The seasonal social marathon is well and truly upon us, my friends. Thanksgiving gatherings, office parties, and then the so-called Christmas festivities. If you're an introvert like me, or someone with a sensitive nervous system who enjoys their downtime and privacy, I imagine you're already experiencing the creeping feeling of dread. It can be surprising just how early the reactivity starts. In fact, some of you may even be readying your excuses as we speak, but as someone who prefers the truth, I'm not a fan of excuses. They have a way of unravelling, and the falsehoods are simply too uncomfortable for me. And we shouldn't leave people hanging either. A few weeks ago, I released an episode on kind leadership. Well worth a listen if you haven't already. In that episode, I shared that kind is saying what needs to be said and what the person needs to hear. Excuses are maybe what they want to hear and what makes you feel better in the short term. But however you wrap them up, excuses and lies are unkind, and a corner of your conscience knows that only too well. Those prone to anxiety amongst us may have begun catastrophising about what could happen if they show up. So this episode is very timely. The temptation can be to tough it out resentfully or go MIA and isolate yourself completely. But there's a better way. I'll be sharing why the reactivity begins, surfacing as it does old emotions that add to the general sense of dread, so we can enter this season with a rather cleaner slate. I can't promise it will be wiped completely clean, but I am offering you some strategies to deploy so you're not hijacked by your subconscious mind. So the science bit. Our brains run on something called predictive processing. Now, there's nothing wrong with this, and it's partly what has helped us to survive for as long as we have. But as you can probably already imagine or predict, there's a bit of a flaw in this process too. Here's an explanation of the process in action to give you an example. Imagine this. You receive an invite to the extended family gathering, an elaborate lunch with drunk Auntie Shirley, handsy Uncle Grant, and the terribly spoilt twins who have never heard the word no said to them. There's also your sister, who has the biggest chip on her shoulder, your people-pleasing parents who just want everyone to be happy, and the rest of the dysfunctional extended family. Phew. What do you predict? Other than a riot, thank you, Ricky Wilson and the Kaiser Chiefs. Here's what you might imagine based, as predictions are, on past experience. The noise from the twins will be unbearable, as they will probably be either gloating about their gifts or complaining because they weren't good enough, and maybe even swinging between the two as they find out what their friends got. The thought of that has immediately upped my dread to the next level. Then drunk Auntie Shirley, who will be okay to start with, in fact she'll be quite the comedienne. But as she consumes more and more sherry before lunch, and then copious amounts of wine with lunch, her observations become more critical and her stage whispers become more audible. Awkward and embarrassed is what you typically feel, and whilst you start off shushing Shirley, You end up distancing yourself from her because you can sense the fallout coming. But she's not the only one you need to keep away from. The main objective of your swerving tactics is to keep away from handsy Uncle Grant for as much of the time as you can, as he doesn't respect boundaries and thinks everyone is fair game. How many times have you heard, "Oh, don't be so sensitive, love, it's only a bit of fun"? Well, not for me, Handsy Grant. You remember being cornered by him when you volunteered to do the washing up a few years ago. That seemed like a great escape until he breathed on your neck. Ugh. I could go on, but you get the idea. All of these experiences and memories create a state of mental and physiological readiness to deal with what it expects to happen. So your body reacts to the story, and because we notice what we look for, you're more likely to experience what you expect. So just by thinking about a social event can tighten your chest, raise your cortisol, and even spike your heart rate. And you haven't even left the house yet. The pattern matching of situation and story to reaction happens in the blink of an eye and triggers the same emotional fight or flight response. Uh-oh, remember last year? It was too much. Start preparing for the onslaught. Now, if all of this sounds a bit doom and gloom, I'm about to give you some hope. And you know I'm on a mission to make active hope contagious, so this is intended to be seriously helpful. Lisa Feldman Barrett's book, 7.5 Lessons About the Brain, which I thoroughly recommend, covers how often emotions are predictions, not reactions, as in the scenario I've just outlined. The good news is, if they're constructed from past experiences, they can be reconstructed, bringing about a different reaction. As the brain uses the past to predict the future, it's time to update the data set. Have you ever reluctantly attended an event only to quietly enjoy it? I know, shock horror. That's the start of the reconstruction to an updated data set. So in order to maximise your success, here are a few things to do differently ahead of any social event. Number 1, attend for a much shorter time and make this clear when you accept. But don't apologise. None of that, "I'm sorry I can only stay for an hour." You're not sorry, you're being strategic. It's more like, "Thank you, I'll be there and I'm able to stay for an hour." Number 2, check your inner dialogue in advance. Attending with an, "Oh, this is going to be dreadful" attitude will make that so much more likely. Language matters, and in this situation, it's part of your predictive architecture. Number 3, master your breathing and grounding techniques. So if you feel your fight, flight, freeze response start to kick in, you can take back control. And do apply your protective energetic bubble before leaving your house. Number 4, pay particular attention to what is neutral or good. Remember, you're creating a new data set, so make sure you populate it as much as possible, even with the small things. And number 5, leave whilst you're still emotionally regulated, so before you get to overwhelm or beyond. That way you can reflect on your largely positive experience to embed that new data set. All of this builds new self-trust that says with confidence, "I can handle this. I've got this." These strategies are all things that are within your control and that mostly sit beautifully within the systems practice category of the Flourishing Introvert playbook. Some of your past experiences may have been painful. I know mine certainly were. but we also don't need to tolerate bad behaviour or allow ourselves to be upset by it. We can let go of the old endurance or avoidance strategies. This time, it's not about overriding your feelings, but it is about recognising that they may just have been catastrophised by your subconscious mind in advance. And now you know how to approach socialising situations with a different mindset. There really is no need to exclude yourself completely, because as humans, even we introverts need connection, but we need the right connection. So it's time to build a new data set that allows us to socialise on our own terms and in our own way, without fear, shame or resentment. And if anyone calls you antisocial for your new strategy, look them straight in the eye and tell them you're simply upgrading your social software. The new version includes boundaries, peace, and no tolerance for nonsense. Because honestly, protecting your energy isn't rude or selfish. It's revolutionary. And that's what a truly flourishing introvert does. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, then please subscribe, rate us and leave a comment, because we know that helps other people find the podcast. And if other people find us, other introverts can flourish.
You are listening to an Intentional Media Production podcast.